Hi, this video is about managing clients using an electronic medical record. Electronic medical record is important in order to provide patients with quality care. It is the ability to exchange health information electronically. It provides accurate, updated, and complete health information about the patients. It enables quick access to patients' records for more coordinated and efficient care. It secures sharing electronic information with patients and other healthcare workers. It helps healthcare providers to diagnose more effectively, reducing medical errors and providing safer care.
Interview the client, such as name, age, birthday, address, family, height, and weight. Chief complaint, health history, allergies, medications. Let's take the vital signs. The temperature, respiratory and pulse rate, and the blood pressure. Now let's proceed to OpenMRS demo. Let's log in by clicking the Inpatient ward. Now let's register the patient. Our patient's name is Karen Marcela Lagza. Female gender. Birthday is August 12, 1966. Address is in Malabon, Metro Manila. Phone number. And a relative. So this is the basic information about the patient. So after filling up those information, let us start our visit. Click Start Visit in General Actions. So this is what we are gonna see. Now first, let's click Capture Vitals. So we can fill up the information we took earlier, such as height, weight, and the BMI. Now input the temperature we took earlier, the pulse rate, respiratory rate, and the blood pressure, and pulse oximeter. And finally, we now have the vital signs of the patient. Now let's save it. After the vitals, let's click Visit Note. This is where we're gonna input our nursing care plan. Let's first start with the diagnosis. The confirmed diagnosis is hypothyroidism. Let's type our nursing diagnosis. Let's type activity intolerance related to fatigue and decreased endurance as evidenced by slow movements, decreased ventilation, and verbalization of weakness. Is mabilis po ako manghina at mabagal na po ako kumilos. So our plan is, in a span of 8 hours, the patient will verbalize an increase in activity tolerance, demonstrate decrease in physiological signs of activity intolerance. So our interventions will include, of course, promotion of rest, fast-paced activities that can help promote rest and exercise as tolerated. Providing an extra layer of clothing or blanket because the patient is prone to coldness. Discourage and avoid the use of external heat source or exposure. Always monitor and mind the patient's body temperature. Encourage increased fluid intake within the limits of fluid restriction. Provide foods that are high or rich in fiber. Encourage pulmonary exercises such as deep breathing and coughing. Administer prescribed medication levothyroxine 100 mg once a day, 30 minutes before breakfast. For our evaluation, after 8 hours, the patient have verbalized an increase in activity tolerance and demonstrated decrease in physiological signs of activity intolerance. After the visit note, let us save it. Now we are back to this page. Now let's click this little home button here. Click Find Patient Record. And as you can see, the name of our patient we just registered is already on top with its identifier 100JAN. It means that our patient has been successfully recorded and registered. Now let's click the name. And we are back to our patient's page. So now let's look at the diagnosis, vitals, latest observations, the weight graph. Now let's go to the allergies section by clicking this edit here. So in order to fill this up, let's click add new allergy. Our patient doesn't have any drug allergy, so let's go to the food section. So our patient is allergic to shellfish, bagoong, crab, shrimp, and basically seafoods. So its severity is just mild. Mild reactions are itching, rash, hives. After completing this allergy, let us save this. Now this is the summary of our patient's allergies. Now let's click return. Since we're almost done, let's add some notes. So our patient is for consultation and general checkup. So what we did is just a basic demonstration of how electronic medical records work. It still has so many functions, but this is all we can do for today. In order to properly secure and protect our patient's privacy and data, let's make sure to log out. And that concludes our use of OpenMRS demo. Our confirmed diagnosis of the patient is hypothyroidism. The patient usually goes for consultation or check-up. For our assessment, the subjective data or chief complaint is, mabilis po ako manghina at mabagal na po ako kumilos. And as we all know, people with hypothyroidism always experience tiredness or fatigue. For our objective data, we have slow movements, decreased ventilation, pain scale of 5/10, vital signs of 36.6 degrees Celsius for temperature, heart rate of 71 beats per minute, respiratory rate of 18, and 110/70 for blood pressure. Because of that, our nursing diagnosis is activity intolerance related to fatigue and decreased endurance as evidenced by slow movements, decreased ventilation, and verbalization of weakness, which is mabilis po ako manghina at mabagal na po ako kumilos. And again, the planning is a short term, which is in a span of 8 hours, the patient will verbalize an increase in activity tolerance, demonstrate decrease in physiological signs of activity intolerance. Moving on to the nursing interventions, the best we can do is to promote rest and exercise as tolerated. This will allow relaxation and promotion of comfort. Simple exercises such as walking, running, and biking. Providing extra layers of clothing or extra blankets to protect them against the cold. We can add extra layer of cloth or turn off the aircon. Also discourage and avoid the use of external heat sources to avoid external heat exposure. Always mind the temperature, monitor patient's body temperature to obtain baseline data and to avoid fever or chills. Let's also increase the fluid intake, encourage increased fluid intake within the limits of fluid restriction. This is to promote metabolism, digestion, and hydration. We should also provide and promote foods that are rich and high in fiber, such as oatmeal and palaya, whole grain bread, which can help control digestion. Encourage pulmonary exercises such as deep breathing and coughing to strengthen the respiratory muscles, to avoid fatigue, shortness of breath, and sleep apnea. And lastly, always administer prescribed medication, which is the levothyroxine. This is 100 milligrams once a day, 30 minutes before breakfast. Levothyroxine helps to treat deficiency in thyroid hormone. For our evaluation, after 8 hours, the patient have verbalized an increase in activity tolerance, demonstrated decrease in physiological signs of activity intolerance. This is goal met.